Hi, this is Swapnil Bhartiya and we are here at Open Source Summit in Vancouver, and today we have with us Jennifer. I have been chasing you for so long. So this is my film, Chasing Jennifer.
I'm happy to be here finally.
Finally. So tell us about your Chasing Grace.
Yeah.
So you were at Linux Foundation, then you started a PR firm.
Right.
Rethink PR,
Right.
Awesome, cool name. I
Thank
don't know
you.
how you came up with such cool name. And then you're starting this project, Chasing Grace.
Yeah.
So what was the reason? What inspired you, or what drove you to start it?
Oh, so many things inspired me to start the Chasing Grace project. I've been a woman in tech for 17 or 18 years. And the volume on the topic was really starting to peak 3 or 4 years ago after Ellen Powell lost her suit to Kleiner Perkins. And a number of other things started to unfold. And then the US election happened. I marched with other women the following January. And I remember the Sunday after that march asking myself, what could I do to help advance a constructive conversation for women in my community, which is the tech community and the open source community. And so I'd wanted to do a documentary project for a very long time, and I'm a storyteller. So I decided I was going to do a documentary series. And so I put out a call for stories in a number of women in tech forums I belong to, and I was inundated with response. Women were inspired and empowered at that time to share their stories and remain so. So I spent 4 months on back-to-back calls every Friday. And by the end of those 4 months, I knew I was not going back. I had to tell these stories. I had a responsibility at that point to tell those stories.
Why do you choose the documentary format?
I wanted to capture stories of real women, real everyday women. You know, we know names like Ellen Powell and Susan Fowler and others who have blown the whistle and received a lot of attention, but their experiences are not rare. They're the norm, really. And everyday women in tech are experiencing those things. And so I think it's really important that we hear them and we give them a platform to be seen and heard for those experiences, because when they tell their stories, they're empowered. We all learn that we're not alone. And as we know in the open source community, feeling like you're a part of a community, feeling like you belong, that there are other people with the same experiences, you're more inclined to build together and create and innovate. So I think that's really important.
So what is the format of the documentary series? How many episodes you have released, and what are the plans for the future?
Yeah, so we're producing 6. I say that with a little bit of emotion because there's so much work, there's so much fun, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of sponsor dollars, right? And so I hope that we can produce 6. We may end up producing 4, but my hope is to produce 6. 6 episodes, so they're about 20 to 25 minutes a piece. They're not available online because we are in negotiations with distributors who won't make any decisions on purchasing until we have 3 or 4 done, a body of work. But at some point next year, they will be available online. That's their format.
What is the business model behind it? I mean, beyond sponsorship that you get to make the film?
Yeah.
Because this project, it seems like very ambitious also.
It is.
And at the same time, it's very important also.
Yeah.
So how do you, you said, you're working with distributors. Can we see it on Netflix someday?
I hope so. We'll see. Those discussions are ongoing. And that's a whole new world for me, right? Because I've been in communications and storytelling, but never in distribution. So we're navigating that now. But the model is we have generous sponsors, companies in tech who want to be a part of telling this story. Comcast is a sponsor, Intel, Red Hat, Linux Foundation, Cloud Foundry Foundation, and many more have said we want to support this work. And they have no influence over the content. They don't get to review or preview, but they just want to be a part of making sure that these stories are told, which is fantastic. And then we also derive revenue from screening. So they aren't available online. But we can screen them, and we're screening them at Open Source Summit this week, in fact, and a number of other places this fall. So we charge a screening fee, and that helps to underwrite the project as well.
Right. So you have made 3 so far, 2.
We're in production on number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, they take a lot of time.
Right. So what was the first one about?
The first episode is about the pay gap. It's called 80-20.
I saw that one.
Yeah. And we started with the pay gap because we felt like that was a good place to start. Money is a very tangible way to know if things are equal. And I think if you read the news and if you even Google pay gap, you know that it's very real. But we were able to talk to 2 women who both found out that their male peers were making more money than them, and they each had a very different reaction and dealt with that in a really different way. And we were able to demonstrate that it's not just a financial impact, but there's an emotional toll, and it can lead to women actually leaving the workforce because they get so frustrated. So I think it's a really important episode. The second episode we're in production on now. It's a little bigger picture. It's about 3 individual women who, against the backdrop of the movement, started nonprofit startups or initiatives inside their own companies, and then kind of follows them to see what they encounter when they do that. Are they hit with backlash, conflict? But then how do they rise above that to be successful? Because the objective of the project is to recruit and retain women for the tech industry. So we don't want to shy away from conflict because it's real, and that's how we give women a way to be seen. But we also want to show that there are so many amazing women that are encountering those things but rising above to do amazing work. And you can too. Everybody can contribute to that.
Right. And what are the next, maybe you want to keep it a secret?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give a little hint. We are exploring themes like female founders, so raising capital and what that journey is like. We're exploring the role of male allies, which actually is going to appear in our second episode as part of the story. But the role of male allies, intersectionality, right? I'm a white woman, but the experiences for women of color are very different, and exploring what that looks like and how we can empower everyone.
Right. And how did you choose these, 6 topics? Is it because of your own experience? But you have been very influential, so you may not have come across some of those problems up to that point. How did you choose these topics?
Mostly from the interviews that I did. So like I mentioned, I did over 100 interviews in 4 months, and I listened and I looked for the common experiences in the interviews. Those interviews were just wide open. Hey, I'm Jennifer, who are you? Tell me about yourself, right? And we just got to know each other. And so I looked for the common threads, and that's how we helped. That's helped to choose the topics. And our last 2 aren't even fully defined yet because we're letting the interviews we're doing now on camera and off inform what those will be.
And after documentary, are you planning to make a feature film also, or full length?
I'd love to make a feature film. A documentary is difficult, right? Because you know the story you want to tell, and you know there's real people out there that can tell it. But I'd love to write a script where I have paid actors and they'll just say whatever I want them to say for a compelling story. So maybe, we'll see.
Yeah, because I have been to film production, and documentary is always more difficult than... So when I was doing my journalism and the final project, you have to make a documentary.
Yeah.
I was allowed to make a feature film, so I made a 30-minute long feature.
Fun.
But it was so much fun.
Yes.
To record the dialogues, to go to location. Because documentary is totally, it's impromptu, you never know what response is going to come out.
Right.
But because what I feel is you're not just doing it, okay, you made a documentary, you're done with it. You're on a mission.
Yeah.
So what do you think will have a long-lasting impact where you actually become a catalyst to the change, not just, make 5 documentaries and I'm done with it. So what is the long-term,
Well, this has been a really organic project. I was inspired, like so many times, like when I talk to startup founders, it's a similar experience, right? Something sparks you to be inspired, and you start doing it because you can't not do it. And so it's been very organic, and I don't know where it will go, but I do think that storytelling is actually there's actually research and scientific evidence that shows that story helps to change behavior, and as a result, culture. It takes a long time, but it's so important. It's more influential than data or anything else that we consume as humans. Story is powerful and it engages. So I feel like it's already starting to make a difference. The women who I interviewed for episode 1, who came to our premiere in Portland, Oregon, where we premiered it, they're changed. I can already tell they're changed by the experience of participating. So, these, and I have other stories, but they'll probably take too long for the interview of the way that people have told me that it's impacted them. But there is the potential that once they're all finished, we will create maybe a nonprofit organization that hosts that content, and the conversations that it seeds can determine what action plan we can put in place as a result of the conversations it starts. I don't know. I don't want to commit to that at this stage, but it's something that a lot of people have asked me about. So who knows? Right.
And let's just move back to your previous job, which was at Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
You have worked in open source community for a long time. What is the culture within the open? Because if you look at it, people from different backgrounds, different part of the world, working openly. So how is that different from other, fields or areas when you do talk about diversity?
Yeah, I think the open source community understands the value more than any other tech community of collaboration. And when I say the open source community, I mean, I feel like the whole tech industry is the open source community now.
Nowadays,
right?
Yes.
Nobody builds software without open source. But I think that the people intimately involved in creating projects and hosting projects and promoting projects really understand the value of collaboration and connection. And within that is an inclusiveness, right? You can't create projects without a diverse group building them. And so people, again, going back to feeling like you belong, you only feel like you belong when you see and experience other people at least a little bit like you, or you feel included by the group. So I think the open source community knows the value in that and can prioritize it. Doesn't mean that it's immune. We certainly know it's not. And in fact, the percentage of women in the open source community is quite small, but there's a lot of work going on to improve that. So it's only up from here.
So you have worked with the open source community, which is like very big, a welcoming community, and now you're working on this project. How has it changed your life? Meeting all these women who are who have changed other people, how it affected you?
That's a great question, Swapnil, because that's probably the biggest impact it's had so far, because I can't share all the episodes with everybody, only at screenings. But I'm just inspired. I'm just absolutely and humbled that these women will sit down and talk to me and share with me some of their most intimate stories. I've learned that really powerful female leaders are also extremely vulnerable. They allow themselves to be very real and transparent. As a result, beautiful things come back to them. But I've got an extended community now. I still have my open source community. It's my roots, and I love it. But I also am meeting new women from all over the world, and it's expanding my community. It's hard to put words to it because it's a pretty phenomenal experience, and I'm grateful, so grateful.
Has there been any incident or any episode where you felt overwhelmed with I'm sure when you talk to all these women, any particular that you still remember, you think, oh, you have goosebumps and you're like,
oh yeah. I'm a sucker. I get goosebumps and I cry at a lot of stories that are told to me. Every time I interview someone, I'll call my co-producer and say, oh my gosh, I just interviewed the most amazing woman. We have to interview her. And he'll say, that's fantastic, but let's make sure the story fits into our narrative right for that episode. To be specific, a woman told me a story not that long ago about her 4-year-old daughter who she signed up for soccer. She was so excited to go to soccer, and on the first day of practice, she put on her pink princess dress, and she took her to the soccer field. She ran out into the soccer field, full force, but stopped in the middle of the soccer field. She saw on the other side a bunch of boys with black and blue shorts on. They were all very similar, and it was all boys, and she just stopped, and the mom sat back and watched while the daughter stood in the middle of the field, and then slowly turned around and came back to her mom and said, let's go home. And they haven't been back to soccer yet. This is 2 years later. She's 6. And that story just, again, underscores what I was talking about. When you don't feel like you belong, it's very hard to continue to participate. And that's the original reason I started the project. Was I was reading, so many reasons like we talked about, but I was reading about there are more women leaving tech than ever before. And it's because until recently, the environment wasn't very inclusive, and women didn't feel like they belonged, so they left. So this story of this little girl is a very specific, heartfelt story of what that's like and how it's hard to overcome.
So let's forget about documentaries for a while. So as a human being, what is the answer?
What is what?
What is the answer?
To?
Equality, to...
Oh my gosh, that's a big question.
In our personal capacities, what can we do?
Yeah. I think we have to think about it, to borrow one of Jim Zemlin's sayings, and I borrow it often, it's a marathon, not a sprint, like Linux in the early days, right? You don't win the battle overnight. It takes a long, long time. It's incremental. And so I think it's continuing to tell your story. For women who are thinking about leaving, we need you. Stay, and find other women and supportive allies in the community to support you and to advocate for you. We can all advocate for ourselves. We don't need that, but it certainly helps when people do it.
Sorry.
You couldn't help it. I know I haven't seen you yet. Hi.
Best person ever.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody agrees to that, yeah.
All right.
See you tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Cut.
No, that will remain in the shot.
Awesome. Okay, let's restart. Next question.
This is really a serious topic, Mm-hmm. I have 2 boys, and once, I was showing him, we watched movies together, and once I was Supergirl, she said, no, Supergirl is not powerful, Superman is more powerful. So then there is a game called Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
The lead actor is a girl.
Yeah.
So and it's on PlayStation 4, so he plays that game. So now he doesn't care about man or a woman because the lead actor is character is a woman, and she is doing all those crazy stuff. So I think everybody can play a role there as well.
Yeah.
At different level, it could be subtle, but it can have a much lasting impact.
Yeah, I think it's a whole other topic, and there's been a lot of research and I think documentary done on it, but the role of women in film and television is really important. It's how our young people consume information and understand culture. So I think that's a really important point. I also recently interviewed a man on camera about what it meant to him to be a male ally, and he told me the story about driving into the office that day for the interview and telling his son what he was doing.
Right.
And his son said, "What's a male ally?" And he had an opportunity to tell his son what that meant and why that was important to talk about. So every little thing helps. And I'm very optimistic. I already feel like we're starting to turn a corner from where we were a couple years ago, but we can't let up because the data is telling us that we haven't made change yet. So any of us that work in tech, we see that change is starting to happen. But like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes so long. We can't take our foot off the gas.
Yeah, I remember one more episode with my son and the same Superman thing, and he was like, "Oh, boys, I said, "Okay, who drive?" But I don't drive, so I like, "Who drives the car all the time?" He said, "Mommy." "Who goes out to work?" "Mommy." "Who goes to shopping?" So I said, "You look at it's not true actually." So yeah, you can do at different level.
Yeah.
I think we have covered some broad topics right now, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to touch upon, or?
I have to say that we can't do the work without our sponsors. So I really invite everyone who's interested in the work and wants to support it to reach out and help us out, because these stories are really important, and we can't produce all 6 without your help.
Okay, now let's not talk about Chasing Grace. Let's talk about you for a while.
Oh, okay.
When you're not making these films and changing the world, what do you do in the free time? I'm talking the fun stuff, not
the fun
work,
stuff,
fun
not
stuff, yeah.
my other job.
Yeah, the fun stuff. What do you do in your free time?
Oh my goodness. Right now, I'm afraid that my husband and I are going through a kitchen remodel. So
Okay.
that's not fun, but it's keeping us busy. I mean, it's not fun in the sense that anybody who's done one knows that it's crazy, but I'll be happy when it's done and I can cook in it because I really enjoy cooking. I do that for fun. I went through a phase where every Sunday I would look up 2 new recipes. I'd make 2 new recipes that week. I'd go out and get the groceries on Sunday and be very intentional about trying to cook new things. So I really enjoy that, but I need to get back to it. My husband and I also go hiking every Sunday. So no matter how busy we are, if we have to do work or family commitments or other obligations through the weekends, Sunday mornings, we reserve for hiking. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so that's nice. Although last Sunday I was traveling back from a shoot, so we didn't get to do it, so reality, but we try.
So when you're remodeling a kitchen, what is the biggest argument? Is it the tiles? Or
my gosh, you know what? We don't argue about the choices. My husband's like, whatever. Actually, he's better with design than I am, so I'll say what I want, and then I trust him. I'll say, does this make sense? And he doesn't disagree with me very often. Okay. But he's very eloquent when he does. I think it's more our temperaments. Like I can really kind of like ride out, like ups and downs. And he just gets, when something's in your home and you're washing your dishes in your bathtub, it does start to wear on you. And I think my husband is a little more reactive to that than I am.
Cool. Yeah. I think that's every household story, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I think now we got everything, right?
I think so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So thanks, Jennifer. For finally we got to talk to you, and hopefully we'll, of course, keep updating, ourselves with the next episode.
Absolutely.
And hopefully whenever it hits Netflix, we'll get to watch it there as well.
I hope so. Thank you, Swapnil. Thanks for having me. Finally. Yes.
Yeah, finally.
Good.